So hi, I'm good. I'm here to show you the Flask build for the last time. This is kind of the tree. I went Pathfinder for more Flask effect. I've grabbed Master Surgeon. It's better, for this specific build, it's a better route to grab Nature's Boon and Master Alchemist. Or just grab, like, yeah, Master Herbalist, Nature's Boon, and just grab more Flask effect. Probably better for this specific build. I was planning on swapping into a completely different build later on, so it's not entirely optimized. I'd probably make the tree a little bit different, but the general idea is mostly the same. Probably optimized to get more life or whatever. So, it's Flask build. Obviously, you're powered by Flasks. So, in light of that, Flasks are the only gear you need. Which is why my gear is absolute trash. It's pretty bad overall. On the weapon swap, I have dual daggers, which are the single target attack, I guess. So, I'm using a Roth's Reach. A Roth's Reach has projectile speed and chain. One chain on your skills. There's not many items in the game that simply read 100% more damage, but this is one of them, because if your projectiles chain once, there's no damage reduction on that chain. They just do twice as much damage, effectively, if, they can actually chain, which is most of the time. So, 100% more damage on that. And this you can use this at like level 27 or something, so it's available very early on. And then you can use a quiver with projectile speed, so these two things combined, it's like, what, 68 projectile speed? So it actually gives EK quite a bit of reach without really any investment. So it kind of takes out the need to use the faster projectiles gem, or uniques like Winds of Change. So on to other parts. Oh yeah, so Roth's Reach is, like, for this specific setup, it's like 34,000 DPS. If I weapon swap to dual daggers, it's 51,000. So 34 times 2 is 68,000 effective damage, and this is 51,000 DPS. So as long as there's more than one target around, this is going to be better. Also, it's more range. It's nice, yeah. Nice, cheap, good to go. Gear is absolute dog shit, but it's okay because we can supplement all this with Flasks. So I have garbage resistances, hence the blue gear, or the blue gear, hence the garbage resistances. Yeah, so if I push a button, I'm somehow capped. Amazing, right? There is, in total, 53% Flask effect. I'm using a Conqueror's Potency Jewel. And it will push us to, for this Flask, to be about 90% all resist. So this is a Resistance Flask of Resistance, this is a Evasion Flask of Evasion, this is a Armor Flask of Armor, and this is a Run Fast Flask of Running Fast. And this is a Health Flask of more health, the shit that you spawn sometimes. Get out there, Golem. What does it actually do? This Flask gives about 12,000 armor, so 700 to 12,900, so 12,000 gain. The Jade Flask pushes the Evasion from 1,000 to 19,000, and this gives us capped resistances. And then for running fast, we go from 73% movement speed to 173. So quite a bit of speed. I'm using 7 league steps because, gotta go fast, right? One thing that was changed, I don't know at what point, but Flask effect used to not affect the iron skin suffix, or the reflexes suffix. So, I don't know when that was changed, but it was, so these Flasks are actually a lot better when you get Flask effect, because the Flask effect double dips on the armor portion, the flat armor gain, as well as the increased armor during Flask effect. So it's like 150% increased armor and like 4,500 base armor. So quite a bit. I'm using a Granite Flask over a Basalt Flask. So if you run the numbers, right? This is the numbers. This is the armor equation. So I've 12,000 armor gained off of a Granite Flask, and you're dividing it by the sum of the armor that you gain plus the 10 times the hit damage. So this would be a single hit of purely physical damage before mitigation. So at 2,800 it is equal to 0.3, and 30% is what a Basalt Flask gives. So it's 20% times 1.5, because we have about 50% Flask effect, so it gives 30% physical damage reduction. So against hits harder than 2,800, a Basalt Flask is better, and against hits lower than 2,800, a Granite Flask is better. So that's why I'm using a Granite over a Basalt Flask. I could stack the two, so just use them both. and get a lot of physical damage mitigation, but not too many things actually worry you when you have about 12,000 armor. I mean, 12,000 armor and 3 endurance charges via the Warlord's Mark Curse is plenty of defense for physical damage. After that, you're mostly worried about elemental sources, so, you know. Outside of bosses, a Granite Flask is always going to be better than a Basalt Flask, so, like Coal Slam or like Vol Smash. Armor's not going to do a whole lot against those since they're just such big hits. It still will do a lot, but it won't mitigate it quite as much as a Basalt Flask. So, that's numbers and shit. Here's the gear I would normally use. Pause the video if you feel like seeing that. So, let's run this Twitch chat map. It has fire resistance, and fuck all else. And showcase it a little bit. So effectively it's going to play the same as like an EK build, but I'm going to have to tap Flasks a bit. Again, no special gear. You could probably put together a guy like this for Chaos, and then you'll probably use about 200 alterations of rolling Flasks as you don't want to buy them, so, you know, fairly cheap to gear out. And the damage, even with this bad of gear, is, you know, pretty respectable on a 4-link. So, yeah, this is the build. So for single target, because you don't always get chains, I have on weapon swap dual daggers. So I go from 34,000 to 51,000. And on top of that, if I am trying to do the most damage single target, you can stack a couple blade vortexes up beforehand, and then just charge in like a fucking madman, and you know, do some extra damage that way. So, yeah, it's basically the build. And look, Tenuwa doesn't really even phase me. And just for the fun, let's see what happens when Flasks aren't up. Let's get rid of Blood Rage. Where's Blood Rage? You white mobs, come at me. So, like you would expect, take a lot of damage. Yeah, it mitigates quite a bit. So, yeah, Flasks, they're pretty good. Anyways, I'm Gouda, and I will see you next time.